Welcome back to Rawcade. I'm Ross Elliott from EVM Productions, and what do we do on this show? Talk about video games. And today, I want to take us down memory lane and then take us all the way back up to Twisted Metal for the PlayStation 3. I love Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal is one of those franchises that you just can't forget. Back in the 90s when it first came out on the PlayStation, holy crap, that game was insane. It was scary, it was gritty. It was all about driving around and shooting clowns in ice cream trucks. Yeah, this game was nuts. Now, I've got a pretty definitive collection of Twisted Metal games. Pretty definitive. I've got Twisted Metal 2, Twisted Metal 3, Twisted Metal 4, and Twisted Metal Small Brawl. Now, I don't have Twisted Metal 1, which is one of the hardest Twisted Metals to get a hold of because it's the original. And I don't have Twisted Metal Black, which is the one that was on PlayStation 2, the one that had all the stuff cut out of it from the American release. There is a couple of other Twisted Metal knockoffs or spin-off games that I do know of. One of my most favorite Twisted Metal knockoff games of all time is Rogue Trip, and one day I probably will talk about this game because I hold Rogue Trip so close to my goddamn heart. It's one of the most... If this wasn't around, I would probably say that Rogue Trip was one of the most amazing shooting car games ever made. If these games weren't around, games like Jak and Daxter or even Borderlands wouldn't have cars with guns on them, not at least like the way that these games had them. Twisted Metal 2 was one of the first Twisted Metals I ever played. It was one of those ones that really ground into my brain. This game scared me as a kid. Basically, there's this guy named Calypso, and he's some sort of god of some kind. They kind of don't really clarify it, I guess. Calypso is this man who can grant wishes, and what he wants to do is he wants to amuse himself. So he asks a bunch of people, hey, if you guys fight to the death in racing machines, I will grant you a wish. And then he always plays with their mind, like he says, you want to fly? I'll give you a plane ticket. Oh wait, you jumped off a building. He's like the first internet troll ever invented. These games are highly violent, high octane, and amazing for multiplayer. Twisted Metal 2 was one of the first ones I ever played, and it was just one of the ones that just sort of ground into my brain as a kid. I wanted to re-find this game and stick it back on my shelf because I loved it so much. Twisted Metal 3 on the other hand. Now, with Twisted Metal 3, my friend Daniel, who got me into Twisted Metal 3 and Twisted Metal 4, practically he got me into the Twisted Metal franchise. I had a friend named Philip that I used to hang out with who got me into Twisted Metal originally, but Twisted Metal 3 was the game that Daniel brought over, and he wanted me to play it one day, and it just didn't feel the same as Twisted Metal 2. I still loved it all the same, but it just didn't have the feeling that Twisted Metal 2 had. It just didn't feel as gritty. They kind of went for a more fun and light-hearted aspect, but it's still an amazing game. And then we come to Twisted Metal 4. I've only ever played this game once, and I never really want to play it again. It's definitively known as one of the worst Twisted Metal games ever made, because it's just not the same. They took the idea, whoever was running it, who made this? It doesn't even say. Whoever took this and made this isn't Twisted Metal. This isn't Twisted Metal. This was the shell of Twisted Metal, and somebody else filled it up with the goo that they assumed was the inspiration for the Twisted Metal series. Twisted Metal Small Brawl was the answer to, well, basically kids playing Twisted Metal. No. I guess this is kind of a cool gimmicky thing, but by the time we've played this, we've already played them. So we didn't really want to play this. And this is kind of where the Twisted Metal series was so far away from itself, it really kind of didn't matter. It was kind of like when they made the Micro Machines series, and then they made that one where they run around on foot. Yeah, that actually happened. And then we cut to today. Twisted Metal. Yeah, Twisted Metal for the PlayStation 3. This game looks beautiful. It plays beautiful. The storyline though. So after the company got back together on Twisted Metal Black, this game. So Twisted Metal Black was pretty good too. I gotta admit, it wasn't actually that bad for the Twisted Metal series, but it still was no Twisted Metal 2. And then Twisted Metal on PlayStation 3 came out. I was waiting for this game. I was wanting this game in my life ever since they announced it. The thing about this game, and I hold this so close to my heart, this game is beautiful in design. It's everything I wanted in a Twisted Metal game for today, except the storyline. They took out the storyline. Basically what they did was, instead of having different characters that you could pick and the endings were all different for every single character, they only focused on 3 characters. Only 3 characters for the game. There's at least over 10 characters to pick from, and they only focused on 3. And they kind of link those stories together. It's kind of like, oh, it's ironic at the end because they all kind of like interacted with each other a little bit, but only 3 storylines for the game. And I literally had beaten it in one sitting. I remember sitting there with my mate, and we ended up doing it in co-op, and I was like, oh, it's over. When you're playing Twisted Metal 2, it did that as well. Like, you could play it in one sitting and then it was over. But at least you could do that with every single character and get a different story and different thing as you played. It was like a different experience. Each character had their own power. With this storyline, you had to play as those specific characters going through the story. You couldn't play as every single person, which kind of made it feel like you didn't want to play the storyline. This game is what should be Twisted Metal if you give it another year. I honestly think they could take this game, make another one, and make it even better. It's like what they did with Duke Nukem Forever, which I probably will talk about the Duke Nukem franchise at some point. This game here is what Twisted Metal can be. They need to put a storyline in this to hold out. If I have to look at Twisted Metal series as a whole, I would give Twisted Metal 2 a 9 out of 10. I would give Twisted Metal 3 a 7 out of 10. I give Twisted Metal 4 a 4 out of 10. Twisted Metal Small Brawl, I would also give that a 4 out of 10. I would actually probably give this a 5 out of 10 because I don't want it to sit around the same place as Twisted Metal 4. And as for Twisted Metal for PlayStation 3, I would give this an 8 out of 10. It still needs the storyline to get close to a 9, even close to a 9.5. This game is beautiful. It plays like Twisted Metal. Yes, there's a lot of button controlling and a lot of stuff that you need to remember, but once you've got this down, you're all the way back over here. But you can't stay here because there's no storyline worth playing. The storyline was crap. I'm Ross Elliott, and this was Rawcade. Remember to check out the other people on Collision, and if you've got a game that you want me to look at or a video game series, just leave it in the comment box below. Catch you next time.